views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Well, coming up on today's show, we'll discuss how the Natural Areas Conservancy is finding ways to preserve New York City's forests, as well as our wetlands. And then after that, we'll talk about the 10th annual South Bronx Cultural Trail Festival. That'll be happening at Casita Maria. We'll be joined by a very special guest. And then we talk about the topic of divorce. We can learn about divorce financing assistance and how it can help anyone that's actually facing divorce. We'll give you some details a little later on in the show. And then we'll speak with the chef and an owner of Millie Peartree Catering on how she is combating food insecurities and helping children in need in both the Bronx and New York City. And then finally, we'll learn about a multi-functioning space bringing together locals and professional artists in the South Bronx. So we encourage you, stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. Everyone, I'm Daren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, June 16th, and of course you're watching Open, a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Now, we encourage you also to stay connected to us on our social media page, that is BronxNet TV, and then also our website at bronxnet.org. Well, a lot has certainly gone on, and we've gone through a lot of things throughout the course of this past week. Can't take you through everything, but we can give you a few things with our Bronx Updates. Well, we start off with community news. Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark held a peace walk and rally, speaking out against gun violence while highlighting neighborhoods seen as hotspots. Our BronxNet reporter Arlene Makoko follows along and brings us the story.
June is National Gun Violence Awareness Month, and Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark, joined by the clergy, Cure Violence organizations, parents, and children, held a peace walk and rally to speak out against gun violence while highlighting neighborhoods seen as hotspots on Valentine Avenue, beginning at Slattery Park at 183rd Street to 194th Street.
Today we teamed up with Darcel Clark, Bronx District Attorney's Office, in regards to a peace walk.
Also there, community police officers joining Deputy Inspector Thomas Alps, commanding officer of the 52nd Precinct, and commanding officer of the 46th Precinct, Inspector Joseph Seminara, all there encouraging young people to connect with Cure Violence groups like Guns Down, Life Up, and Save Our Streets to share their grievances or help diffuse conflict. This comes as according to the latest Bronx figures from the NYPD, showing that there have been 215 shooting victims this year, up from 82 last year, and 187 shooting incidents compared to 77 last year.
I'm going to treat these shootings as if it was a homicide.
This a shift from the past.
Normally a shooting happens, we'll have to wait until somebody is arrested and then we do the work. We're going to do it as soon as it happens, to start gathering the evidence earlier in order to make our cases.
Among those there to offer support was this resident who signed up as a volunteer to further the cause. She shared her hopes that were echoed by many others here.
Most of these guns go for street.
For more information on Guns Down, Life Up, based at Lincoln Hospital, go to gunsdownlifeup.org, and the website for Save Our Streets is courtinnovation.org. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
And thank you, Arlene. We will stay in political news. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called to fund youth violence reduction programs. Our BronxNet reporter Darissa White brings us the story about these elected officials and their passion.
Shootings are up 73%, and violent crime is up 22%, according to statistics released by the NYPD this week. And these stats come on the heels of a fatal Memorial Day weekend in which a 15-year-old boy was shot and killed, and at least 12 others wounded by gunfire in the span of 6 hours.
And what we're learning is there are certain things that we never knew about that actually work and can reduce the chances of youth being killed, maimed, injured in violence. And that's what they've been doing here at Jacoby.
A new intervention program, Stand Up to Violence, or SUV, founded at Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx, is designed to help communities with high rates of gun violence respond to shootings or prevent them altogether by using resources such as mentorship, job opportunities, and education.
These same communities nationally are being ravaged by a rising wave of community violence.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer are backing the plan completely, asking Congress to provide nearly $400,000 in federal funds to the violence reduction program.
What would happen if we started looking at violence as a public health issue, and that we respond and make the nexus of treatment of violence the hospital?
One of the program's leaders, Kyan Reed, says mentorship completely changed his life around. And that's when he knew he wanted to help transform and save others.
I've lost a brother to the jail system due to gun violence. So this is my life work, this is my passion, to make sure I service my community in a proper way.
Most of the funding will be used to add a mental health service component, modeled after Chicago's Cure Violence program. And Kyan believes that adding more programs to underserved areas will help bring down violence.
Once they realize that it's not normal for these acts of violence to happen, then we can start to reprogram their minds and their ways and actions and possibly have them change their lives.
Other components of the program include using creative arts and music therapy. In Pelham Gardens, reporting for BronxNet, Darissa White.
And thank you, Darissa, and we will continue to follow that story and much more. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for our Bronx updates. Don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up right after this.
This year, New York City began using ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local offices, such as mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. Ranked choice voting means that voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference, instead of casting a vote for just one. You can still vote for just one candidate if you prefer. So, how will your ballot look? Your ballot will look the same as always, except now there will be a checkbox with ranking numbers depending on how many candidates there are in a race. So how does it work? If your first choice gets over 50% of votes, they automatically win the race. If none of the candidates get more than 50% of votes on the first round, then the candidate with the least amount of votes gets eliminated, and the votes get recounted again in a second round of counting. Here's an example. Let's rank colors. I like blue the most, so I'm marking it 1. I like purple 2nd, green 3rd, and orange 4th. Okay, my votes are in. Now other votes are counted and the results are as follows. Blue earned 36%, purple earned 27%, green earned 19%, and orange earned 18%. As you can see, none of these colors earned more than 50% of the votes. So the one with the smallest amount of votes gets eliminated. Voters who chose orange as their first choice now have their votes distributed to their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives 50% of the votes and becomes the official winner of the race. That's it. That's ranked choice voting. Ready? Let's vote.
And welcome back. With threats of climate change and sea rise growing, the Natural Areas Conservancy and the New York City Parks have collaborated on the city's wetlands management framework. Now, based on extensive field research and building on decades of work by the New York City Parks, the 30-year plan presents the first ever vision for the continued protection, restoration, and care of the city's last remaining wetlands. Joining us to tell more details is the executive director and co-founder of Natural Area Conservancy, Sarah Charlop-Powers. And Sarah, good to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And so as we were talking today, obviously a lot to really discuss, but give us a little bit about your background on the wetlands.
So I'll say this interview is extra fun for me. I grew up in the Bronx and really love the borough and love its parks. And like many Bronx residents, I wasn't aware of the vast extent of wetland areas that exist within the city. But when I had the opportunity to work on the founding of this organization, our city has about 10,000 acres of wetlands. And the natural areas are distributed across the boroughs. The Bronx has significant wetlands in places like Pelham Bay Park. And the wetlands that we have today are just a small fraction of the historic wetlands that our city had hundreds of years ago. And each acre of wetlands provides really important values in terms of, as you mentioned, protecting us from sea level rise, buffering our coastlines, also helping to mitigate things like extreme heat. So the research that went into this plan was a partnership between the Parks Department and the Natural Areas Conservancy, and is intended to lay out a forward-looking plan to help us make sure that we don't lose the wetlands that we have today, and that we really take care of what we've got, because we know how important these places are now and how increasingly important they will be as we move into the next 100 years.
Yeah. One of the reasons we love the borough of the Bronx is simply because we are, out of all the city, the largest parkland. And then you've got to deal with the parks, and then we also talk about wetlands. How do we get to the place of better preserving our parks and our wetlands?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the Bronx is rich in parks. Places like Pelham Bay Park, largest park in the city, is over 2,000 acres. And a lot of the parks in the Bronx have really unique natural features, in addition to having great playgrounds and ball fields and amenities. Places like Pelham Bay Park and the Bronx River and Van Cortlandt Park, but also smaller wetlands in places like Soundview and Castle Hill. Each of these wetland areas plays a really unique role in terms of helping the communities that they are next to be more resilient. And they also provide really important access for Bronx residents to enjoy nature and to experience the outdoors with family and with friends. The thing about wetlands that's a little tricky is that, unlike other types of parkland, wetlands move. So we know that as sea levels rise, our wetlands are moving inland. And so we have two options of how to address that. One is to restore our wetlands and to help them to retain their footprint. That includes things like adding sediment and planting in areas where we're losing wetlands to make sure that we maintain that footprint and that benefit of those wetlands. The other thing that's really important is thinking about places to allow wetlands to move inland and making sure that we don't build right up to the edge of our wetlands so that we don't have any room for them to migrate as sea level rise. The kinds of recommendations that are in the wetland management framework are really comprehensive in nature. We looked at over 5,000 acres of wetlands with a team of scientists and citizen volunteers, and the information about each unique wetland in the city is sort of rolled up into this vision for how we care for the entire resource at a citywide scale. So we see huge opportunities for the Bronx to benefit from an increased investment in its parks, and in this case specifically in its wetland infrastructure.
Yeah. And, you know, when you have this strategic plan now going forward as to dealing with this, what is a part of the strategic plan and how do you see this rolling out?
Sure. So it's interesting. There's a lot of talk right now nationally about infrastructure. And when we think of infrastructure, we frequently think of things like roads and bridges. For those of us who live in New York, we might think of our subway system. But infrastructure is really any piece of public land or an amenity that provides a benefit for people. So we view our parks and our wetlands as a piece of infrastructure, and we think that they need the kind of systemic investment that you see in other types of public infrastructure. So the thing about this framework that we're really excited about is twofold. One is that it's based in a lot of information, so we feel really confident that the science and the community engagement behind it is really robust. And the other thing is that it provides an opportunity for the next mayor, the next city council, future leadership in our city to shift away from doing a piecemeal approach to investing, so picking an individual park and investing in that park. So we've laid out an approach to selecting the projects that are most important in terms of their vulnerability. And we've also provided some financial tools to allow future administrations to think about the kind of financial and staffing investment really needed to make this work happen.
What do you view as the highest priority at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can answer that question two ways. I think the highest priority from my perspective is that whoever comes into our city's leadership at, the sort of mayor, borough president, city council level, embrace the idea of wetlands and forests as a priority for the administration. So rather than answering with a specific project, I'll say we have a lot of priority projects in each borough that we've identified. But the thing that I think would be a huge win for New Yorkers would be an embrace of the idea of investing in these places as a really critical form of public amenity that we all benefit from. And that would be a big shift from the kind of great work that's happened historically by groups in the Parks Department and nonprofit partners. We have never had that kind of full embrace of these places as really critical to the future of our city.
Yeah. And so if people want to get connected to support, find out more information, what are they doing?
Yeah, so I would encourage people to check out our website, which is naturalareasnyc.org. There's also great information about wetlands on the Parks Department's website. And I would encourage people to sign on and learn more. And I'll share that we are also excited in the next couple of weeks to be releasing a new plan for trails in the city. And one of the number one things I would suggest, besides logging on to learn more about our work, would be to make a plan to spend some time outside in a natural area in your neighborhood or in your borough, because I think the incredible beauty of these places is something that I can't really articulate with words as well as the experience of getting to visit them yourself would.
Yeah. Well, sir, I'll tell you this, what we have in New York City is really beautiful and definitely needs to be preserved. And hopefully we can find a plan that's going to really preserve for time to come. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
All righty. Well, listen, if you want more information, visit the website, Natural Areas NYC. We also encourage you, follow them on social media at Natural Areas NYC. Please don't go anywhere. We've got more show coming up. Open continues coming up right after this. And welcome back. Casita Maria Center for Arts and Education is currently presenting the 10th annual South Bronx Cultural Trail Festival. It started on June the 1st and will continue through June the 30th. It's celebrating the culture, communities, and history of the South Bronx. And this year's festival theme is Together Again. calling the South Bronx community to join in the collective healing power of the arts after an extended period of distance caused by the global pandemic. Joining me is the Director of Creative Arts and Programs at Casita Maria, Gail Heidel. And Gail, good to have you.
Thanks for having me today, Daren.
Great, and we catch you in the midst of this month-long great time of festivities. So for Casita Maria, talk to us about what's happening and what we've missed.
Okay. Well, we launched at the beginning of June with a public art piece called Time to Soar, which is actually going to be on view throughout the summer. It's located in Monsignor del Valle Square, and it is 4x4 panels that are pasted on stickers on the ground. It has images taken by young people in Hunts Point paired with excerpts from poems. So this is just one of the things that we're doing, to bring color, light, joy, and celebration to the neighborhood on a daily basis. And then some performances that have passed already on June 5th. Casita Maria's jazz ensemble called Bronx Banda, which features Arturo O'Farrell, performed on June 5th with musicians from the New York Philharmonic at Playground 52. So that was a full day of music. They were playing songs that were all written during the pandemic based on oral histories of Bronxites like Grand Wizard Theodore, Bill Aguado, Bertha Hope, and Elena Martinez. Last week on June 12th, we had 3 performances in the plaza with Annette Aguilar and String Beans, Chris Washburn and Sciotus Band, and a tribute to the Fort Apache Band. So we're really looking forward to our upcoming performance on June 18th. And I'm happy to share a little bit of that now too, if you'd like.
Yeah, so June 18th, you have this performance, and you can share a little.
All right. So it's another day of music. What we're doing, from June 12th, 18th, and 26th is we're featuring the ensemble members from our jazz ensemble Bronx Banda so that we can celebrate the influences of this jazz ensemble. So on June 18th, starting at 3:30, we have Amazona Strings, which is a 6-piece all-female string ensemble. And later in the evening, we'll have an avant-garde jazz band called MPT Trio and Sean Conley. What's interesting about these 2 bands, not only are they in Bronx Banda, but they also have members that are teaching artists at Casita Maria. So we wanted to have this be a day of celebration of what we do at Casita. So we provide after-school programming for young people. So we'll be featuring Carnival Parade. The young people are going to walk from Casita Maria over to the plaza. We'll be unveiling that public artwork that I talked about earlier. And then we'll also have some performances by the young artists. We'll have kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders dancing with dancing classrooms. And then also our musical theater young performers will be singing a few well-known numbers as well to round out the day.
What's it like for you? I mean, knowing that where we were last year and this year to have this many activities, people on the outdoors, what's it mean for you? I'm absolutely thrilled.
The whole year is about, planning with ABC plans, where it's, if we're in a safe space, we can move forward with plan A, we may move to a hybrid model or you move to completely remote. So you always had to be flexible and fluid. So to be able to actually move forward with our first plan, which was to be together again in public space, I feel that, not only is it bringing me joy, but it's bringing the community joy as well. We've been, getting so much great feedback from people and, just to be able to be with one another, but also to hear music and to be able to, dance and sing and, clap your hands along with the music. I think it's just something really important for all of us.
Yeah. And also for those who are literary lovers, there is this book club.
Yeah, so we're, because of the pandemic, we started meeting on Zoom. And one thing that has actually been, an upside to that is that we have people from all over the country join us for our book club. So we pair the books that we select with what's happening in our gallery. And I asked Olga Correa, who is currently in our gallery exhibition called Grafitera, We Are Here, what book was influential in her life. And she selected When I Was Puerto Rican. So we started reading that at the beginning of June. We meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Zoom, and it'll be running through the end of the month. If you want to join the book club, you're welcome to. You can go to casitamaria.org and you can still register, just catch up on the book, or just drop in, to be able to hear the discussion. And then the writer, Esmeralda Santiago, will be joining us on the 30th. So you can ask her questions directly about, why she wrote the book and, what influenced her.
Yeah. What do you think this means for the community, given the fact of where we were and where we are today?
I mean, I think that it gives us hope that, we're moving forward, that we're healing, that we've actually worked together to get this far, with so many people being able to get vaccinated, for those people, that we've all been, wearing masks and socially distancing this whole time. I feel like it's about resilience and working together as, a community to be able to, bring New York back, open it back up, be able to, have the arts be part of this reopening as well, I think is.
Well, I know that with COVID-19, people are going to be excited to really be outdoors and have the opportunity to just enjoy all this artistic flavor. But the truth of the matter is, I think it's even more for the artists who now have an opportunity to display their craft.
Absolutely. One thing that Casita Maria did not stop doing throughout the whole pandemic was support artists. We were able to employ over 75 artists throughout this year. And we are, employing, over 100 artists during the trail this month. So I think that, is a really important thing too, to be able to, I feel like arts and culture is one of the backbones of New York City and what makes us such an amazing place. And so I'm really happy that we've been able to, continue supporting artists so that they can continue, making art and music that they can share with everybody, and we can, be part of that magic.
And before we go, can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek as to what else we might be able to expect coming up down the line this summer?
Sure. We have one more show, which hasn't been announced yet, so you'll have to check casitamaria.org for that. But it'll be 3 more musical acts based on the musical influences of Bronx Banda. So we will have a reggae band, a hip hop soul band, and an opera singer paired on that day as well. So just continue to check our website as we continue to release additional events. And every Friday throughout the month of June, we also have a farmer's market where we're giving out free fresh produce. You can go to 924 Kelly Street on Fridays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. To be able to pick up the produce. And I have to say too, not only are we, thrilled to be able to support artists, but we're also really thankful for Councilmember Rafael Salamanca Jr., who's the one who supports the South Bronx Culture Trail. And we want to be able to, bring this to the community and be able to, pay all of the local vendors and businesses and artists that we do without his support.
We got to leave it there, Gail. So much to look forward to. And it's great that we can see arts activity on the outdoors right here in our borough. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Daren. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
All righty, Gail Heidel here with us. Now, if you want more information, visit the website, casitamaria.org, or of course, you can follow them on social media at Casita Maria BX. Now, don't go anywhere. We do have more show coming up. Open returns right after this.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community, and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from Bronx,
And welcome back to the show. With COVID-19, a lot of things people have had to deal with throughout the course of the pandemic. Divorce is rarely easy, and COVID-19 is unfortunately adding to the pressure. New Chapter Capital specializes in divorce financing assistance by providing funds specifically for individuals involved in divorce proceedings, including in their divorce financing assistance. And here now to share a little bit more is the founder and CEO of New Chapter Capital Incorporated, Nicole Noonan. Nicole, good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
And when we talk about where we are right now, COVID-19, divorce was already going up pre-pandemic. When we look at what's happening right now, give us your perspective on what you're seeing.
Definitely a trend upwards. A lot of people were put in a position where if there was already marital discord, this definitely exacerbated the situation. So if you didn't like your spouse before, spending 24/7 with them for the last year certainly did not assist them. The problem is for a lot of people that want to divorce, they don't have the ability financially to go off and find their new living situation, whether it's moving apartments or selling their home. And certainly they don't have enough funds to actually go out and hire an attorney and get the divorce. So it's definitely been a perfect storm of people who want a divorce, but don't financially have the wherewithal to do so.
Where did you get in your mind that, we really need to take a look at this? Divorce funding is really necessary. When did this come to mind to you?
Yeah, in my own practice. So while I was practicing during the housing crisis, I would have people, both men and women, coming into my office. They had a great house, but at the same time, they had no way to pull the money from it, no way to liquidate. And I thought, wow, there's got to be something else out there to help these people going through divorce, to get them to their new chapter. And in the UK and in Australia, divorce funding had been around for many, many, many years, and people really loved it. The firms loved it, the clients loved it. And I said, wow, why don't we have this in the US? And that's what I did back in 2011. I started working with funding, and it's been just growing ever since, helping lots of people.
What have you seen from the UK that you say, listen, you know what? We need to really concentrate on this here?
Right. So I saw cases. I mean, I'd hear about cases from fellow practitioners that they would have a spouse that would not be able to afford their services otherwise, and were getting backed into taking a settlement less than what they were entitled to. Or even worse, were staying in really bad marriages, whether they were married to a narcissist or they were enduring both financial abuse, physical abuse, and mental abuse. So in the UK and Australia, and now that's what we have in the US.
Yeah. And so how do people typically go about preparing financially for dealing with divorce?
Knowledge is power. So I always say when people first think about, do I want to go ahead and get a divorce, gather as much information as possible, because typically there's one spouse that's the person that's either the breadwinner and the one who handles all the finances, and the spouse that takes a back seat to that. So when you're thinking about divorce, start preparing, gather the right information, the right documents, bank statements, mortgage statements, anything you can get your hands on, do that, and start to get a real clear picture of what your net worth is as a married couple. And then be realistic about it. Is this something where I'm going to need to hire an attorney? Do I have assets that are going to need to be divided? And if so, what's the right fit for me, for a counsel, for what attorney is a good fit for me? And that's always something I really encourage people to take some time to find a good attorney, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person.
A lot of time and potentially a lot of money. And I know that divorce is the final, but there are some alternatives. So walk somebody through what some of the alternatives are in a divorce proceeding.
Yes. So it doesn't need to be that you end up before a judge with two lawyers. There are other alternatives. And certainly you shouldn't throw good money after bad by hiring counsel and putting your attorney's kids through college and not putting your own. So look at avenues like mediation, where you go in and meet with a mediator. It's definitely can be cost effective. There's also collaborative law. Now you're still hiring attorneys, but you're not necessarily going through the court route if that's something that you can do. Again, if you don't need attorneys and there is no assets to divide and you can make good decisions together as a couple, because at one point you were in love, if you can now get through this by sitting down and saying, hey, these are my non-negotiables, what are yours, and these are yours, and going ahead and filing by yourself, you can do that too. So just be mindful of, sometimes with the more assets there is more to fight over, but if there aren't many assets there and much to fight over, then you can take a piece of paper, fill out what you think you want, what he wants, and be done with it. So.
Yeah. You know, people have a tendency to gravitate towards television. We like that. And as they gravitate towards television and internet, obviously they're seeing more and more stories of people who are big name people who are really coming through and announcing their divorce after years. We can talk about Bill Gates. The list can go on. We can fill out the show. But as we're seeing these big names, it does have this trickle-down effect where I think sometimes people look and say, well, if they can do it, I can do it. But the only problem is that sometimes you can't do it the way they do it.
Exactly. Right. Again, more assets, more to fight over. I mean, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were fighting over south of France winery vineyard. I'm sure Bill Gates and Melinda will be fighting over things that most people would not even dream of fighting over. So, but then again, I do think they are human, and like us, they were, whether or not they have 20 homes and could live separately throughout the pandemic, they were still married during the pandemic, and it was a stressful time. So like you and me, they can go off and file for a divorce because they're sick of being together and they want to move on to their next chapter. It's just sometimes they have more to fight over and can go off and hire private judges and the best attorneys in the world to represent them, but that may not be necessary for everybody.
Yeah. With it, divorce can potentially be the worst, but yet and still, there can be some good that comes out of it. So talk to me about the good side and what you've seen.
Yeah, I always think, children first. So when you're in an unhappy marriage and there is fighting going on back and forth and people are scared to actually go off and divorce because of their children, they stay in the marriage because of their children, that may not always be the right move. Certainly they want to see their parents happy, whether that's together or apart. And there's certainly many books and classes you can take on how to really deal with children going through a divorce, whether it's through a school or your church, to go and have that help. And there are therapists certainly that help children going through a divorce and parents parenting those children going through a divorce. So it's not always the best answer to stay in an unhappy marriage.
Yeah. So what tips do you give viewers right now who may be watching and saying, I need to know something?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first tip is to knowledge. So like I said before, whether finding that marriage certificate, your passports, make sure you have copies of important documents. It's really important. Should you decide to go forward with it, explore the different avenues, whether it's mediation. There are programs, platforms on the web that you can actually file for yourself online, and it's very inexpensive. But of course, if there's a custody issue and you want there's certain assets that you definitely want and you think your spouse is going to fight over, it may lead to litigation. So explore the world of divorce attorneys and make sure you get the right fit, and to know that divorce funding is available if you need it. And we provide the funds for legal fees and expert costs, so forensic accountants, and for some clients for reasonable living expenses. So there are alternatives.
Well, Nicole, thank you so much for sharing with us. I think it's some very important information, especially as we see these numbers continue to rise coming out of COVID. Couples and families need to know. And so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All righty. Well, we want to let you know if you want more information, we encourage you to do us a favor. Visit their website at newchaptercapital.com, and then also follow them on Facebook at Divorce Finance. We do have more show. We want you to stay with us. Open will continue right after this.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC. If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
And welcome back to the show. Our next guest has been known as a world-renowned chef and tastemaker who spent the last decade actually perfecting her craft. She believes the community must uplift and help one another because we'll never know when our time will come, and we may need some help. So she's actually hosting a Juneteenth food drive. Joining us and sharing details is chef and owner of Millie Peartree Catering, Millie Peartree. And Millie, good to have you.
Good, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me, Daren.
I'm so glad to have you. And as we are talking, honestly, cooking is your passion. You know, you've got the culinary gift, and you're taking this culinary gift and you're actually bringing it forward, especially during a time like Juneteenth. So talk to us about what got you going on this.
Well, I mean, prior to, I guess I could say prior to the pandemic, I had a wonderful restaurant here in the Bronx, and it was closed before that. But, I noticed that, we had to start shifting gears. So I started to donate my time and utilize my talent to feed people that needed it during that time. And then I slowly pivoted into feeding children. So from July of last year up until 2 weeks ago, I was able to feed 80,000 children in the Bronx. And during that entire process, I started to research more and more about, food insecure households and what food insecurity meant. And I just wanted to make sure that I was a voice within my community to actually help people with their need. I always say that, I was able to have a business in my borough, I was able to make money here. But, when things shifted, I said, it's also equally important to give back to people that don't have it. And that's pretty much been my mission and my passion since, the pandemic.
Yeah, so you had this business and now you turned it into another type of passion. And so you're feeding people. How'd you go about coming about the people that you wanted to reach?
Well, with the children, like I said, we were feeding a lot of, hospital workers, essential workers, anybody that was out there combating COVID-19 during the height of the pandemic. But as we slowly started to open up last year, I never really heard anything about children. A lot of the feeding programs were canceled and are limited. So I created an initiative called Full Heart, Full Bellies. And that was a way to bridge the hunger gap for children that lived in food insecure households. I know that, of course, in our borough of the Bronx, we're a lot of hospitality workers, we're a lot of working class folks. And I just wanted to make sure that, I was able to help fill that void. And over the past year, like I said, we fed 80,000 children and families. We had one food drive this past March where we fed 5,000 families with food boxes. And now that the feeding program in particular, it has come to an end, I operate on the side of, you give somebody a fish, they eat for a day. You teach them how to fish, they eat for a lifetime. So that's why my program has pivoted into, food drives to actually help people get groceries in their household. And some boxes include recipe cards. It's just a way to show people like, even though we're opened up, you're not forgotten, because the food epidemic has been here. Food insecurity has been here for many years. But I'm hoping that, through my platform and relationships and everything that I do, I can help bridge that gap in my lifetime, I should say.
Yeah, so you've done this during COVID, bridging the gap. Talk to us about your business. Do you plan on going back to the restaurant business, or we're coming out of COVID? Will you continue doing what you're doing? How do you see things playing out?
Well, I don't see myself opening a restaurant. I'll never say never, but as of right now, I don't see myself opening another restaurant. I'm still with my catering. I still did catering, throughout COVID. I mean, now people are picking back up. They're having more events. But most importantly, I feel like moving forward, this is what I would like to do. I would like to help people. So, I always say there's a blessing in everything. And I found my blessing, which was able to actually help people and, educate myself on food insecurity and just to help people. And I'm just happy that I'm able to be of service to a community that has serviced me for so many years.
Yeah, and with Juneteenth coming around the corner, I know you're coming front and center with a food drive. Talk to us about the food drive and how the public can help you in that endeavor.
Oh, so the food drive. So we're actually gonna have a food drive on June 18th. The day before Juneteenth. And I'm a Bronx native, but a lot of people don't know I was born in Harlem. My mom actually grew up in Lincoln Projects. And, I just feel like Harlem is just like, that the melting pot of African-American culture. And this would be a great way to bring, food to another borough that actually will need it. And on that day, we have wonderful, sponsors from Tyson Foods. They donated a tractor trailer load of product, Dole, Del Monte, Coca-Cola, Cabot cheese, WW. I'm actually a WW ambassador, formerly Weight Watchers. And it's just a blessing that people are like digging in their pantries, which would be, what I would call a pantry, but it's technically a storage, warehouse facility. And they're just donating all this product. And, we have wonderful volunteers that are coming across the board, like from Target. And, as it pertains to that, we are fully committed on volunteers. We're trying to feed, 2,500 people on that day. But, people can just find out more about, my pro-social initiative, Full Heart, Full Bellies at Chef Millie Peartree on social media, and just continue to follow the journey. If anybody is in need of food, if they're going to be in Harlem at the Lincoln Projects area, just come get a bag. It's, it's just a way of celebrating and just being able to help, communities moving forward.
Are you a little surprised with the way that food insecurity has been, particularly with COVID? I mean, I think all of us know that we had a problem beforehand, but really watching through COVID has opened a lot of people's eyes.
Well, it actually opened my eyes. I remember I was able to contact trace the day I caught COVID. It was March 18th. And I went to go visit a friend, and I'm blessed enough that I don't have to take public transportation. But that day in particular, I took public transportation, and I saw my neighbor, and we greeted each other, and I got on a city bus. And, a couple days later, like a week or two later, my neighbor passed away from COVID. And after, I recovered from my symptoms and I quarantined for a few weeks, I was able to see, lines. And I asked my friend, I was like, what are all these lines? Are there COVID testing? And they were like, no, that's pantry. And I said, I was just floored to see, all of, the cars just lined up for blocks and blocks and blocks. Just picking up food boxes to get to people. And it just opened my eyes, and I felt bad. I said, what, am I this out of touch that I didn't know that food insecurity was this huge problem, in not necessarily our city, but in our country. And I said, what, I have to do something. So that was the force within me to say, what, God spared my life from COVID. And I don't have a restaurant any longer, but I still have my talent. I still have my skill. And that's the way I'm choosing to live my life moving forward to help people.
Well, Millie, I want to congratulate you on what you've done, helping the community, being a blessing, and especially on Juneteenth, where people will be able to participate and receive a lot of food distributions, but most of all, love. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Well, listen, if you want more information, visit our website at milliepeartree.com. Again, milliepeartree.com. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We've got more open coming up right after this. back to the show. Studio 3 is a unique creative nexus for arts made up of studios for artists to create, as well as a gallery for exhibitions and events, and a photo studio for all scales of content creation. Now, Studio 3 NYC's mission is to foster opportunities for exposure, as well as sales and networking and educational programming in New York City and abroad. We are pleased to have joining us here on the show right now the founders of Studio 3 NYC, Zoe Johnson and Anna Lustberg. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us, Daren.
Thank you, Daren.
Thank you. Well, the arts is very important. It's important. There are hundreds and thousands of artists right there in New York City. Talk to us about your decision to really try to give artists a space.
Yeah, so Anna and myself actually met through working at a gallery space in Chelsea a few years back. And we thought that it would be a great opportunity for us to both use our expertise in the art field to create a space for artists, by artists, because both myself and Anna are artists as well. And just to create a community space for artists to really network, create together, and have a safe space to exhibit, create their work, and showcase their work.
Yeah.
And that's how Studio 3 was.
Yeah. Anna, give me a little bit more about this here, because when you talk about coming together, I hear Zoe talk about the opportunity to create space and really come together. What does that mean for artists to be able to have that space and to be able to come together?
Right. So as an artist, you're usually isolated from everyone else. It can be a very isolating process when you're creating, whether it's in your studio or your home. So the opportunity to connect is actually very important. And we know this, like Zoe mentioned, as artists ourselves, but also because we've worked in gallery settings. So we know that the connections that you make as a professional, really taking it seriously as a career, is just very important to building your career, right? We both know both of our networks are made up of many artists and creatives, all different types of artists, visual artists, performing artists, etc. So we just know that the connections you make, other artists also link you to other opportunities to do more work and get exposure, but even more than exposure, just the experience to better conduct yourself. A lot of artists don't know necessarily how to price their work or how to market themselves. That's a whole other ballgame in addition to just focusing on your practice of creating. So we understand this, and we've just seen over the years from our own experiences working and also just in our social lives and our creative spaces that there is a need for artists to come together. It's just very important for building.
Yeah. And when we talk about building, you want to expand. And I know one of the things that you're talking about is the need to actually expand, given the fact there are so many artists and you've got a space, but you still want to see some more. Talk about that.
But we know about this community of artists that's in the South Bronx in particular, which is where we want to base our brick and mortar space once we can open it. But in general, we're in this New York art world. We're kind of in this scene. So we do want to build it specifically uptown and in the South Bronx, where we feel like there are so many artists and creatives, and a ton of great people have always come out of the Bronx. But we want to see more of a community and more of a connectedness, especially as there's a lot of development and things going to be changing in the Bronx in coming years. I hope that helped answer.
Yeah.
Zoe, do you want to add to that?
Well, as an immigrant myself, originally from South Africa, I felt that when coming over here, I had especially a really hard time connecting with the creative community in the Bronx and New York City. And that's why myself and Anna also wanted to focus more on uptown and the Bronx creatives. I've lived in the Bronx for probably about 14 years or so. And I always felt that since I do have so many friends in Brooklyn, it was especially challenging for me to, make that trek all the way from the Bronx to Brooklyn just to interact with more creatives. Yes, there is a community or creative space in the Bronx, but I feel that it hasn't really been tapped into as much as it should be tapped in.
And as a woman entrepreneur, obviously you guys are launching out in this kind of way. What's it mean for you to be a woman entrepreneur, launch in this space, and particularly in a time like this, right? When we're coming out of COVID, this pandemic, and art is definitely a necessity.
As a women entrepreneurs, I mean, this space of the arts and ownership of spaces in general is definitely male dominated in this industry. And when it comes to the arts in particular, you're telling stories. So it's very important to keep that in mind when you look at ownership of anything that you are engaging with or consuming. And the arts is a great way to educate others. And to, we engage with the arts, whether it's a museum or gallery setting or anything, a pop-up show, whatever it may be, you're learning and you're really getting to learn somebody's story. So that's why it's important to look at ownership. And I think that it's great for women to be owners and founders. Zoe and I have both worked in gallery settings that had a lot of women in positions of leadership, but the ownership was often male. So at the end of the day, the final decisions were made not by necessarily the people on the ground working and making things happen, but by the owner, as that usually how it works. And that also adds to how many other opportunities you can make. With being women owners, I mean, we just are women. We were born as women. It is what it is. But it becomes like, we just want to be owners of our own. It's great that we're women, but we just are people who want to start something great. And I think it's even better that we offer the female perspective in terms of storytelling.
And before we go, Zoe, I'll let you get the final word. Talk to us about what people can expect coming up in the near future.
What people can expect about coming in the near future? Well, we are definitely we're very excited about what is coming. We definitely plan on doing more events to showcase more local artists in the Bronx. We're very excited about that. We've been building on our network, letting people know how they can support us as well. We recently started crowdfunding to open up our space, getting any amount of donations that we can, and just engaging in more artists, and especially if they need a space to create. We've been keeping them updated on what our latest developments as well. Been reaching out to friends and family, as well as fellow supporters about the upcoming events, and they can definitely get in touch with us on any ways and means to share or donate, support us through our social media or email.
Well, Anna, Zoe, thank you so much for being with us, and congratulations on Studio 3 NYC. Of course, we will get our viewers now the opportunity to find out more about you and to be connected. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, I want to let you know now, for more information, follow them on Instagram at studio3.nyc. And then also, we've come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch us on Optimum's Channel 67, Verizon Fios. That'd be Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And if you're looking for a brand new episode of Open, come back on Friday. Check out my girl, Rena Valentine. She's going to be here on Friday, bringing you arts, entertainment, and the things also that you need to know. For all of us here on Open Wednesday, I am Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless. Until next week, keep this channel wide open.